Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Conversation. I'm your host, Karai,
I'm your co-hosting.
and welcome to The Conversation, Reflex.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on here. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of came out of nowhere, but it was awesome to hear that, you wanted to come on the show and just talk about things in general, because that's originally, what we started this for as a means of the community just being able to come on here and, just talk Storm and really not even just Storm, but just all things gaming and online and the online world as a whole. So yeah, we're glad to have you, Reflex. So with that being said, how did you get your start in the competitive world of Naruto?
So, this is going to be, it's not really a long story, but I wasn't into competitive Storm until mainly until Connections, believe it or not. Uh, so, Storm 2, I just played, nothing to do with online. Storm Revolution, I played online, but it was like player matches, and I wasn't involved in any communities at that point. And then Storm 4, I was also doing player matches. I forget my record on player matches, but it was like over 1,000 or like 2,000 matches before I ended up, I stopped playing the game because I found the player base depleted so much. So I was just like, yeah, I'm kind of getting bored. Uh, Even then, I knew nothing about the competitive scene. And then I got into connections, and that's when I started getting more competitive, more into like first to tens and first to fives, whatever the case may be. No money matches yet, but still,
Hmm.
I'm slowly getting there. I still think that there's a possibility I'll get up to the high level point, but yeah, that's when I mainly started getting into the competitive scene.
That
That's
sounds pretty interesting. It sounds like, a story that most of us, went through, like you played the games, you enjoyed Naruto, you loved the series, and I think that's where most of us stem from. We enjoyed Naruto and this series. And
Hmm.
I think that, in the future, more players are just going to come from that route and they're going to eventually explore it, either from, people just telling them that it is there or just by wanting to desire to explore that route. And I think that Um, I guess I have a question. I guess going back to the question, what was the how did he get involved with you know, with with the online world in the first place? In the sense of Naruto, sorry.
So, well, I first of all, like Discord's obviously it's like a big aspect in it. But I started mainly watching like Twitch streams on Storm Connections. Unfortunately I kind of knew that the game wasn't going to be like insanely popular just due to the marketing, but I started watching streams on Storm Connections. I was playing the game at the time too when it released, so I got into some streams of a friend of mine, Nichikage, and I joined his tournament. And that's when things really started to kick off with I got more involved in the community and playing different like casual players because that's who I was fighting. I was fighting casual players. I even considered myself a casual player too because when I first started playing Storm Connections, my items sat still in my inventory. They would sit there. I'm telling you, not even kidding. They sat there the entire match. My items didn't move. No tags, no speed pills, no guard breaking. I was so like focused on boxing, I wasn't using the items, which items are crucial in this game.
yeah.
But I got involved in the tournament and I joined his Discord server, and then everything just started kicking off from there. It's been going gradually up. So met a lot of cool people as well.
That's awesome. That you were able to just find your start in the community there and then just kind of work your way around that interest and then just gradually improve to the point of where now, I was on YouTube the other day, and Sync kind of brought it up to my attention that you had done a first to 10 with Boroshiki, um, top three, heck, arguably even the best at this point in connections. What was it like playing someone of such a high level in connections like that?
It was very it was very intense. It was nothing I've seen before. Um, and me and Boroshiki ran into each other a few months ago. The first time, it was just a match. We just did a match in a tournament. Nothing serious. It was a just a tournament Nichikage was hosting on Twitch. We had ran into each other then, and he's like, "Hey, that's pretty awesome gameplay you got." Because I was using Kirin Sasuke, which not many people use Kirin Sasuke. They go with the Rinne Sharingan and all that. Um, because you have more options. But I was using Kirin Sasuke, like that's pretty good. I'm like, thank you. So now we just did our first to 10, and it was interesting because how do I? He plays very, very aggressive, which honestly is how you should play. And I'll tell you exactly what he was doing to me in the match that threw me off completely. Um, because the people I'm fighting in like just casual matches or with friends, they're not playing like how he's playing, like very high level. So he was using the last Naruto Hidan and Kakazu. I remember this team. Like the fights that I get brutally beaten up on, I do remember. um, and the fun ones too. But he was using that team, and the playstyle he was using was just pure aggression with Naruto the Last combos, along with his jutsu, his multi shadow clones, and then he kept locking my guard in place. And if you guys don't know what that means, I don't know how to put this, but like if you're standing there holding your guard against a jutsu, you're stationary, right? Unless like you sub, which your brain has to just react quickly. So he had me held in the guard with Hidan's flying sickle jutsu, and then he kept doing the Naruto grab, Naruto the last grab. So for those of you guys who don't understand that kind of technique, it's common, but you don't. It's common, but you don't see it that often, right? So every time he was doing that, and it's on my channel there, but every time he was doing that, he kept getting a reset, which would maximize the damage of the grab. So it was difficult to get around 100%. That plus the intense aggressions, I needed to make sure my counters were on point because countering is so crucial in this game. It's not even funny. It's the one thing I can stress to everybody is make sure that your counters are on point. So it was a pure, yeah, I loved it though. It was fun. It was very fun. He's very good.
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear. I mean, two things that stand out to me about that are one, really, Heat Heat's an interesting case because it's funny because Heat in Storm 2 and in Storm G, the way his jutsu worked was that he was much more stationary. He did move, but he didn't move at the rate that he does now. And his jutsu still lasted for quite some time and allowed for high conversions even into ultimates until Storm 3, where they nerfed him into the ground and switched up his jutsu. And it's interesting how he's undergone this transformation to the point of where now, thanks to the extreme buff they've done on so many jutsus and assists, he's become really good again. And it's funny because the way they nerfed him into the ground in Storm 3 ended up really being what saved him in the meta to this day. Because had he not been nerfed and reconfigured into um, what he was in Storm 3, he would have never evolved to this version of himself in Storm Connections, where he's just really good, really mobile, really locks you down. Because if they left his Jutsu the same, um, it definitely locked down, but there were strategies around it where you could kind of bounce out of it. And on top of that, you could kind of get away from it. You could use movement to get away from it, and it was hard to pin people down. But with the way he is now, he really locks your opponents down. So it's interesting how things have gone full circle with that assist. And so another thing that stood out to me was really just ultimately you said something to the point of where you can't stress it enough, but make sure your counters are on point. And I definitely agree with
Mhm.
you there because really, when it comes to defense, that's like your main source of really making your opponent respect you in the game. And so I really think that that was a good point as well. Reflex. Were there any other things that really stood out to you about that first to 10?
Well, so he wasn't you. So two another thing that he was doing, which some high level players will do this, some won't. But he wasn't using switch tech. So, in fact, he actually stayed Naruto on point the entire time, which like for like all of our matches. Um, which at that point you are utilizing the main character that you have to the best of your ability, but making sure that your supports are also putting in the work. So Akazu is a bit of a nuisance when it comes to supports, especially dealing with them, because and it's not the fire jutsu I have a problem with. The thing that he's the most annoying for is the unblockable. So he has an unblockable jutsu with his lightning that'll you can't block it. Okay, so if you're out of sub, you're holding guard, you get hit by that thing, you are toast.
Hmm, yeah.
But he was using Kakuzu very well in those fights as well. And he wasn't switching and he was just using Naruto on point. So that was also very interesting to me. Um, even when I was watching Fly Kunai's tournaments a while ago, I didn't see him switch much often either. Like had Sarda on point. A lot of people were using Sarda due to like obvious reasons. But yeah, no, that's mainly all I can point out when it comes to that first to 10. Just the on point aggression plus using the support so well and then making sure those resets happened what really did it, you know? It's what really did it. Um he's really good at conserving chakra. That's something even I got to work on is conserving chakra. Even though your chakra regenerates over time, even but if you're moving, it's not going to regenerate as fast. So conserving chakra is a massive thing as well. And he was doing that very well too. So yeah.
Hmm. I think it's kind of interesting you point out your own flaws and I guess as a person who's just learning to do these things, it's a necessary skill to point out your flaws. Um, I guess my question would be is what advice would you give a casual player who wants to get competitive or anyone who wants to get better at Naruto? What would they need to do? What's the steps that they need to take?
So I've actually analyzed this a lot, and there are two ways of learning. And I'll tell you the method I use. So this is the method I suggest to anybody. Um, the first method is to go into training mode and start clicking buttons. I don't think that's the best method. That's from me personally. That's not what I did. What I did is I just went in. I went online. Well, did the story mode and all that. You get a general gist of the controls, but I just went straight online and I started boxing people. And then I learned what they did. What did they do to beat me? How can I kind of replicate what they did or, make sure that that doesn't happen to me again? Because first of all, I don't recommend anyone do this. Like, there are certain play styles that people have in the game, and my play style is jutsu neutral. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm transitioning from combos to jutsus really frequently. Not spamming. I've had people say I'm spamming. It's not spamming, especially if you watch what I do. Um, I'm just utilizing those jutsus to my advantage, and then I'm making sure I'm getting my distance when my subs are gone, and I'm like repeating that process. The problem with that play style is your chakra will be depleted very quickly. And that's why I'm saying, that's why I said, I brought up that it's something I have to work on, is conserving my chakra and making sure I have enough chakra. The alternative play style, which a lot of pro players use, and even if you're just starting out, um, I would say if you're just starting out, Jutsu neutral is your best bet, but don't go heavy on it. Don't like use jutsus over and over again. That's not how you play the game. You have to utilize your combos with your jutsus to connect certain things. Um, Timing your supports is also a big factor. But I'll go back to what I was just saying. A lot of people on like higher up, higher level players, right? What I've noticed is they're playing differently in the sense that they're not a depleting their chakra, b uh, spamming jutsu. I would count as depleting chakra, spamming counters, spamming grabs, all this stuff. Okay, they're boxing, purely boxing and switching. So that should be the playstyle you're aiming for when you get up to those higher levels. But currently, I just advise you guys to get in to the online and fight people and try to replicate what they do. If you're fighting a spammer, obviously don't do what they're doing. That's not what I'm telling you guys. Like, the Metal Minato flying Raijin level 2 every 2 seconds. Don't do that. But replicate what someone else is doing in terms of counters, in terms of when they're using their jutsus, when they're using their supports, what supports are they using, all those things. So that
Uh,
would be my suggestion if any new player starting who wants to get into it.
that's wonderful. I think that's very good, solid advice that when people watch this or listen to this, they're going to be able to walk away with something because you just dropped so many nuggets for players that are struggling online and many new players to come. So, with that being said, um, it's intriguing because, guys, there were so many good things you talked about there. Um, what I'm wondering is, you seem to have a lot of enthusiasm around getting better in connections. And I think that's interesting because there's a lot of top players that are I mean, they're on the game, but they're already saying, yeah, the game is messed over. CC2 did us in. A lot of just negativity towards it, and rightfully so. I can definitely see some justification behind that. But what has you so excited to just dive into this game and really dissect it and get better as a player overall?
Listen, the amount of excitement, like I'm excited 100%, 110%. So there's no diverting me away from Storm. I'm not gonna say Sparking's terrible. I like it. I like that game. Okay, but I've been playing Storm for a very long time, so I like playing Storm more. If that makes any sense. Um, I'm excited for what's to come in the future. CC2 has hinted at Storm Connections being a live service operating kind of game, so it's going to get updates more down the line. Hopefully, some more new game modes. Season 2 will come out with more DLC. Uh, so yeah, I'm gonna keep playing. Like it's just what I play. I don't like I can say I have a fair amount of hours on Storm, fair amount of hours on Storm, and I just love the mechanics and I love the way the game was designed. At first, I just despised it. Well, not when it released, but like I think like a few weeks after it released, I was like, okay, this is getting insane because they didn't have tournaments, they didn't have half the functions that were necessary. I believe the game was purposely released half-assed, knowing that they'd be able to make a quick buck and then invest all of that money into something else. I firmly believe that, still to this day, that like these games coming out or that have already released, a lot of the money they made off of Naruto Connections went towards those games, but their method of marketing for Storm Connections was terrible as well. So it didn't make too much sense to me. The first trailer I watched, I was actually at my cottage and I was watching it and I'm like, huh, what's new? Storm 4 stuff. Like I was just watching Storm 4. And then they had a little preview of Indra and Astra at the end, which everyone at that point would have clicked off the video. So I mean, I'm excited for it. I'm always gonna be, as long as they keep updating it. When they stop updating it and releasing DLC, that's when I'll probably end up like dropping it. But as long as they're committed to actually advancing the game like they did with Shinobi Striker, if they can get the game up to the point where it is in like with Shinobi Striker, then that would be amazing for Storm Connections. It would be in a much better state. So, yeah, it's I'm not gonna give up on it yet. I believe it's still a good game, even though there's a lot of problems that they didn't touch, they didn't fix. But this is the first Storm game where we've had patch notes that have like a list of 20 or 30 characters that have been like messed around with. They've adjusted things, which you don't see CC2 do that for Storm games. So I think they're like committed to trying their best and just advancing Storm connections. So yeah. And by the way, CC2, they watch all this stuff. They watch the competitive fights on YouTube. They watch what players are doing. They watch what players are using. They watch what's meta. This is proven that they look at this because there would be no other way to properly make adjustments. They know, oh, Shino was the problem. Let's fix Shino up a bit. Now no one's using Shino. Let's fix Ashra. Now no one's using Ashra. Right? So they know, they understand. So I'm just excited. 100% ready.
That's awesome, Reflex. Yeah, I mean, you spoke on patches there, and to put it into context, Storm 3 was the first time CC2 released a patch. I remember that patch coming out vividly, and like there weren't even the notes were laughable compared to now. And
Yeah.
when the patch released, it was just like, oh, an adjustment has been made, but there was no detail. You didn't know what was adjusted. Really, it would just say, oh, awakening speed has been reduced. But I mean, there was really no real insight as to how the characters were getting nerfed. It certainly wasn't lengthy like it is now. Like it looks like they actually do take a look at the game and adjust the characters, and then we get the detailed patch notes, and it's really great. And there's actual nerfs to these characters. You could tell the differences. I did a video on the last patch, and I could feel the differences and things like that, as well as see the differences. So that's a really good point, Reflex.
Well, I'll tell you what threw off what the last straw for the community. So Dragon Ball was gonna release. It was on the release on the up there. Naruto dropped their last patch with Boroshiki. Cool. First of all, that character is pretty imbalanced, if you ask me. There's things that need to be fixed there. 100%. Like his air combo when you get hit down, it's not like any normal air combo. You get hit down, but you're able to backflip.
Yeah.
So if I'm getting hit by his air combo and I get hit down, I just backflip and then counter immediately when they dash. You know,
Hmm.
there's inconsistencies there. Um, but one thing that really threw the community off, and I don't blame them for this, was Tamari wasn't touched. First of all, wasn't even in the patch notes for the last patch. And Tamari's single-handedly one of the biggest issues in that game right now. Okay,
Yeah.
she and I'll explain the principles. So, for those of you new players who don't know how this character works, you're gonna run into this a lot online. Tamari has her little spiral fan jutsu. I don't know what you call it, whatever. And basically, what it does is if you're not blocking, you're in a very vulnerable position, which majority of the time you're not going to be blocking. You're going to be mid combo or transitioning into something else. And the only way to stop supports, and this is going to be a pro tip for you guys, the only way to stop supports in this game is either hitting them with your character's combo, which it won't work most of the time. What you have to do is use switch tech. So if you're hitting the opponent in your combo and they're not blocking, and you switch while they're using their support, you're going to divert the support, will track onto the character you switched out of, and stun. Okay? So that's a very, like, I think it's the best method of getting out of supports is switch. But what I'm gonna say is Tamari, what she does is while you're in a combo or transitioning and she comes out, she's going to make sure you sub 4 times and still get hit. And she's also going to make sure that you don't have a guard anymore. So she's amazing.
Yeah, she is. She
She
certainly
she she
is.
avoids directional. She does not follow directional subs. If you directionally sub, which there's so many things I could tell you guys, but for new players as well, there's directional subbing. So if you have your analog stick held to the left or right, and you sub, and it's held to the right, you're gonna sub right. If you're holding it to the left, you're gonna sub left. Same with your supports. If you're using your support and you're holding your analog stick up or down or side to side, your support's going to queue up Jutsu 2. But if you're not, it's going to queue up your Jutsu 1. Um, so she ignores directional subbing, completely ignores it. Um, and Shikamaru's bags still need to be nerfed as well. So, yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people were thrown off. And Karin's also another issue. She was barely touched too.
Hmm.
So um, he was he was touched in the sense that her cooldown is higher, so you're not using her as frequently. But the way you get out of that is you just switch into her and then you use the jutsu. So it's yeah. I don't even know if I should have gave that advice, but you guys is a lot of people were like, "No, we're done with this. We're dropping it," because the last patch notes weren't the best. They didn't fix the broken supports, meta support. So
Hmm. That's so odd too. Um, I don't know why they wouldn't fix them, but you spoke on Shinobi Strikers, and for those who may not remember, when Shinobi Strikers dropped, definitely nowhere near what it is now. I remember playing that game for like a week and just saying, "Yeah, I'm good." And I'm not gonna lie, past few months, I kind of thought about getting back into it because they've really done a complete 180 with that game. Can you talk to us a little bit about Shinobi Strikers and its transformation? Do you know anything about that?
so in terms of that game, I played it like a few years ago. I don't know if I played it like upon release, but I think I might have. Um, and the main reason, in my opinion, why it was shut out so much was because of the lack of content it had. That's what it looked like to me, and the services were all whacked. So like it was just buggy. Um, but now we fast forward to 2024, right? So the way that they've fixed Shinobi Strikers, well, they've fixed the network issues. I'm not experiencing network problems anymore, or in terms of the servers on that game. But also, they've given the game a lot of DLC and options. So, like, they've released think they released Kaguya and all those other characters. The fun thing about that game is that you can customize. First of all, having the ability to build your own character from the beginning is amazing. So you can the character that you make and the DLC that you buy, you're able to equip those characters' jutsus on your own custom character, which to me was like that was crazy. And I don't know if they introduced that when it was released. But what I'm saying is the more DLC that comes out, the more options you have, and the more the more viable it is. The one thing I will disagree with in terms of that game is I noticed that there's like kind of like a, I don't know if you call it like a gotcha system, maybe. But there's a little wheel there. I was messing around with it, and you have to spin it to get the legendary equipment, ninja tools, and that's when I was like, I don't know about that, but sure. But yeah, I mean, I think those scrolls to spin the wheel are easy to obtain, but yeah, that game has revived a lot of the player base, and it is very very successful. Because you see a lot of the mobile Naruto games shutting down now, and you look at the console ones are the ones they're gonna stay alive. Storm released, or CC2, Bandai, whatever, they released Storm 1 on mobile. Now, my advice to all of you, don't play that game on mobile. It's horrendous. So, if you want to play the game, stick with the console version. You're going to have a much easier time. And that game was like $15, and I regret every penny. But I wanted to test it and see how bad it was. So, that's just a method of making money. You know, there's no reason to release that on mobile. Why? Um, I mean, unless people are just no, I don't see the reason. Storm one, no online. But yeah, Shinobi Strikers had a great transformation, very popular, and I played it recently, and I'm gonna play it again for sure. But I'm locked in the Storm realm, so that's yeah. I mean that sounds like that's a crazy statement to say. I'm locked in the Storm realm, but you know, yeah, that's where I've been at.
Yeah,
That makes sense. And
yeah.
it's just like, hopefully, with CC2 in the future, they follow the Shinobi Strikers route and really give the customers what they want because, um, and I guess I may sound pessimistic to anyone who's watching this, and maybe I can come off as pessimistic, but I want to give constructive criticisms to make CC2 the best. I do not want to give them slack for, doing right things like one or two times and not giving them, like, credit where credit's due. Like, they do great updates. They made like a great update with the idea of like a penalty system with connections and stuff like that in the beginning
So
and stuff like that. Um, I'm trying to think of this again. Okay. Um, the best thing that hopefully that CC2 can do is follow that route and not go the way of other live service routes where if they don't follow these things, it disappears. That's one critique where I never liked live service games like Destiny or other games like that. They usually just die based on the updates and based on how frequent we get these updates. And my hope, and I think a lot of hope in this chat today, we can all produce this. CC2 releases consistent updates that are give enough time to actually fix things that need to be fixed, not do parts where it's like they fix things and they don't actually fix things. They need to give content at least like Shinobi Strikers route, where I think for what my memory is correct, Shinobi Strikers like a month every month you get a new feature or item, and then
mhm.
2 months you get a new character. That's what I hope CC2 would do to keep engagement up, keep the fans excited, and keep things flowing. That is what I would want in these update flows because DC2, I think that's the one thing that Connections, in my opinion, is facing is lack of updates, lack of content other than we do these battles with Itachi versus Sasuke, or I guess then this one sounds really crazy, but would you take it or would you receive it? I don't know who in the development team would think who would take it and who would receive it is for me is a good idea as a
Yeah,
name, but
look,
whoever did that needs to you know not make that name or not be part of the process again.
look. I'm gonna go back on two things real quick. Then we'll move on. But so two factors in the beginning. Okay, one. There's one of a billion, but I'm saying two here. Um, First of all, apparently, and according to sources, CC2 or whoever I think whoever Bandai whatever develops the game, were only given a year to work on this game. Okay, that is unacceptable, obviously. So that also proves that it was a rushed product. Another thing that upon release, ranked was a disaster. Okay, due to the fact that people figured out very quickly that the method of avoiding losing your points, which by the way, guys, don't do this now. Okay, I'm not advocating for this. You're going to get penalized if you do now. But back then at the start, when you lost a match in ranked, and before you got to the points reduction screen, all you had to do was close the app and reboot it, and your points stayed the same. So the only repercussion to that was a smiley face on your little thing. Wow, cool, great. Um, so that was a big issue. They should have added something to prevent that from happening from the beginning. Also, this new penalty system, I'm in 100% agreement with it if it worked, because I think I've crashed about 6 times online so far for some reason, and I still have 4 penalty warnings. So, um,
What?
yeah, the penalty system doesn't function properly. Like they update the game and then something doesn't work. Um, from what I've noticed, at least, if someone can tell me on YouTube or Twitter or whatever if they've been suspended, let me know because I haven't. um, so yeah, just bonkers.
Yeah, that's CC2. One of their biggest glaring issues is that they really don't. It's like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's time constraints, deadlines. I'm not too sure, but they when they attempt to fix things, they kind of try to. It's weird. Like the infrastructure or whatever it is they're attempting to fix can be broken, and instead of just breaking that down and starting over, at least from a point where it isn't as broken or glitched, they'll just kind of build on from that to attempt to fix it, which just inevitably causes more problems.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how, and I that's why I think it's literally just like a little team of devs, like it's half-ass fixes and then something else breaks. Like, why are my controls switching when I'm rematching somebody? How did my controls go from standard to custom?
Yeah.
You know, how am I subbing with triangle now? I wasn't doing that before. It's just I don't know, it's weird, weird. So.
Extremely weird, that's for sure. Control switching, all these kinds of bugs. It's just insane. Now, very early on, we spoke, you mentioned sparking a little bit. I want to ask you, you have a lot of enthusiasm for Storm. Do you think that connections will always take a backseat to sparking, given where it is now?
Um, you know, I don't, my honest opinion, I don't think it will. I think like it'll definitely be second place, but what I've told people is I believe that those two games will go back and forth. Right now, Sparking's in a phase where it's new, so a lot of people are playing it, and everyone has been starving for an anime game that actually works and is actually good. Um, Barking has its cons. Over the past few days, I've seen a lot of issues. Nothing as drastic as Storm Connections, but there's a lot of characters that need to be tweaked in Sparking. Um, but yeah, I don't. I think they're just gonna flip back and forth. I think when a new Naruto update comes out, people are gonna go to Naruto. I think when, and by the way, these numbers are not going to be comparable at all. That's why I'm always saying, like, that's what I'm saying. It's always going to be second place, but there'll be like some flip flopping happening. But there's always going to be more people playing Dragon Ball. It's a much larger IP, and you know, I don't much larger, but it's larger. So, and that game has like I don't know how big the roster is. Maybe one of you guys could tell me. I think it's like oh boy,
Over
100 something.
180 characters, so it's got like about 30, 40 more characters in Storm Connections, I believe. Something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, it is.
But I think that yeah, I definitely think that Storm isn't going to be up to par with Dragon Ball Z Sparking ever. Um, unless there's some kind of drastic plan that CC2 has. But the DLC will release for Sparking. Updates will release for Sparking. You know, it's all just going to be the same. It's going to be consistently growing, right? So, like 3 million copies in 24 hours. That's insane, right? I do think that those
Yeah,
numbers are going to surpass Storm 4. So, yeah. Mm.
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just crazy. 3 billion copies in that short span of time. I mean, wow. I mean,
That's intense. It's intense, right?
yeah, it's just almost speechless. I mean, it's just crazy because I mean, we've seen it time and time again, but when you give people what they want a clean anime game. They want it to pay homage to the anime. They want the characters to look good. I mean, I feel like I could main Cell Jr. in that game because Cell Jr. looks good. It's not like you can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Cell Jr., it's like, yeah, obviously Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, but Cell Jr. still looks good for Cell Jr.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just gonna it's Barking will definitely be bigger. Storm Connections, people don't know this either. Storm Connections was supposed to be an open world game. It was not supposed to be an arena fighter.
Mhm.
So, but it was like literally like a last minute decision to switch things up and try to work on a better Naruto game that doesn't have anything to do with Storm. But then they're like, no, we gotta just make this into Storm Connections. We're gonna do that. You know, that's not our big project, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna just release this game because we need to give somebody something. You know, and
Mhm.
but yeah, Sparking they put a lot of time and effort into it, and they did really good on that game. There's obviously fixes that need to happen, but the online, like the stability of the online, I don't see issues with that. It works pretty good. It's not kicking you out of lobbies and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
Their lobby system is
It,
perfect. Yeah, I think.
yeah,
I guess for me, it goes to show that also as well, it goes to show what the plan is actually working. That I've seen recently on Twitter. I don't know if y'all keep up with Twitter or not, but I've seen recently they're canceling other games that Bandai was on the plan list because of the method of doing Sparking Zero works, where it's like you take your time, you make something that people want, and you give a quality game, and people eat it up. That's why they're canceling One Piece. They're canceling these other Naruto games. So I think Bandai's getting a shift. They're going to shift and not rushing these products off the door anymore in comparison to before.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. And people might forget, but there was a Black Clover game that came out a few years ago. It was a clone of Overwatch, and that game died. It almost felt like that game died before it came out.
yeah, yeah.
Because it was just
Oof.
trash. Rushed.
The mobile game for Black Clover is more popular than whatever the heck that was. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's almost like that game really doesn't exist because I don't see it anywhere.
but it's really concerning that they're doing that because that kind of, in my eyes, that means like it's one of two things to me. It's like they're cutting these off because they know they're not going to profit much from these IPs, but they they're advancing more on the animes that are really popular, right? So, like,
Hmm.
I'm sure people would love to see another Attack on Titan game, right? Something that's actually pretty good. Um, or like more Demon Slayer stuff too, right? So it's scary for Naruto and One Piece and all that, because One Piece does deserve a game. So yeah, that's just my main concern. And also, what I put into question was if this means they would be discontinuing Storm Connections. I don't think that's the case. I just think what they're saying is, with the shitty translation I was given, um, that they're going to be just discontinuing newer games that are coming out. So they're still going to update.
Yeah,
Hmm.
still gonna see those
So yeah,
updates come.
potentially.
Yeah, for sure. And you said, what
Yeah.
did you just say, Sir?
I said that it's like to me, that translation. Hopefully that translation's right, bro, because I don't want to be hearing, oh, like the connections season two got discontinued. Not trying to be doom and gloom or nothing. I just want to hear that on the next tweet or nothing. You know what I mean?
I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of people would like to hear that, though.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I know a lot of people would.
there's a lot
hmm,
of
I would love to.
a lot of doom around connections for sure, which is kind of a bit uh worrisome, honestly, just because at this point the community really needs the community to just keep it going. There needs to be hard, but I understand it. It's hard. It's hard looking up at sparking and seeing how well how perfectly their lobbies work. How great the game looks. All the views. People are on Twitch. Keon, a very popular figurehead in the Storm community. He ended up, leaving Storm for numerous reasons. He's doing well on Twitch, averaging like 300 to 500 viewers a night. So it's like it's
Yeah.
there, man. It's that game. It really is. It's that game that people have been waiting on, like you said, Reflex.
People have been waiting on that game. So they're they're ready, they're ready to continue playing, which I respect that, I see. And it's like I've just thought about it so much. Like I'm not at this point. I'm not even mad about it's like Storm Connections anymore. Like I don't see value in like getting like upset at the game anymore. Like it is what it is. It happened, right? There's nothing we can do to change what happened. CC2 knew what they were doing, so it is what it is. I'm not gonna. And by the way, Naruto Connections, I paid full price for that. That was 150 Canadian dollars. Okay, and Dragon Ball Z was also it was 160. So I'm not gonna not play the game. I'm gonna play it.
Right.
I can't get the money back. So what's the point in being like, let me put this down. I'm gonna play both games. You know, so
Respect that energy, especially in this time where people are gonna, either ditch sparking or sparking to go to connections or vice versa. It turns into this war, but most people have to realize, they're gonna you can play both. It's okay. But knowing human nature, knowing how human beings are, it's gonna be a reality where slowly and surely, Karai has mentioned before, if your lobbies work, if the gameplay is at least decent enough, at least if things are stable, you can play with your homies and not crash or kick you out or switch your controls around, then you already know where people are going to go. Even if they're Naruto fans, they're going to have to make that dilemma. And it's unfortunate. I mentioned it many times on Twitter where, human beings are not very rational creatures or very logical creatures. They'll go with things you know, that just work because they want
yeah,
to have fun. They don't want to worry about the tiny stuff. They don't want to worry about the BS. They don't want they're human beings too that come home from work doing a 9 to 5. That I know this has been mentioned many times. They're doing a 9 to 5. They're tired. They want to play their anime game. They want to escape the reality they're all in. We all know this world's being kind of like doom and gloom right now, and they want to have a place to escape. And when a game has issues, and they like it, it's not a very pleasant feeling. So when you get something that is very functional, very very fun, you can play with your homies and you can escape that reality. Most people are going to choose the way of escapism in that sense. So sparking will be that one thing that people can escape to. They they can have fun and escape from reality. How do people feel with that?
yeah, and sadly, Storm Connections will keep dying out. Um, if we also heavily rely on content creators to provide content on the game so that CC2 can look at that. And if that's not happening, then it makes it really hard to be like, "Hey, CC2, the game is blue screening. The game is just crashing. The game is not working. My buttons are changing, right?" So people are like content creators are now making better content. And called it is better content. Sparking zero better, getting more views, getting more numbers, rather than what they would get in Storm Connections. But the sad part is again, like the devs, they're not gonna see these problems unless there are content creators showing what's going on. So that's my fear there. But hopefully we'll see. We'll see what happens. My personal experience with Sparking, playing it for the past few days,
Huh?
I enjoy it. I really like it, the combat and everything. I find that the vanishing is kind of in the inconsistent realm. They need to look at that. They also need to look at UI Goku because he should not be able to do some of the stuff he's doing. Uh, and there's another one I forget. Like I'm not 100% familiar with all of the characters because believe it or not, I actually never really watched Dragon Ball Z.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it's that I'm that kind of guy. I picked up the game and I haven't really watched the anime. Um, but yeah, they got to look at that. They got to look at that character because it seems like you can speed run your way to S rank just by having him in your team or singles. But yeah.
Oh, well, that was well said, Reflex. Um, so where can everyone find you?
So you can find me on. You can go through my YouTube, as well as you can also find me on Discord. I will be providing that. And those are, yeah, that's mainly where I hang out on Discord. You can contact me. So I'll provide that information. And yeah.
Well, there you have it, everyone. That's where you can find Reflex. Definitely keep an eye out for Reflex. There's no doubt in my mind that if he keeps up this kind of enthusiasm, remains consistent, that you'll see him as a top player about 6 months or so for sure. Because from what I can see, he just needs to build on those fundamentals and he'll be there. And with that enthusiasm, yeah, there's no doubt. As always, thank you guys for watching another episode of the conversation. This has been your host, Karai,
And your co-host Sync.
joined by.
Joined by me, Reflex. We're here. And
Thank.
we're out. So it was a great conversation, guys. Really appreciated you guys having me on.
Oh, awesome. It was good to have you. And thank you guys for watching another episode of the conversation.